Have you ever felt like you just have a motivation problem? Like if you could just get motivated, everything would fall into place? Well, stick around. We're about to dig into a huge misunderstanding about what actually drives us. It's not about willpower, it's about the hidden architecture that's running your life, and we're going to figure out how to rebuild it.
And that right there, that's the whole idea in a nutshell. It suggests that our constant focus on feelings, on trying to get motivated, is totally misplaced. What if the real issue isn't a lack of desire, but a problem in our internal design?
Think of it like this. On one side, you've got motivation. It's like the weather. It's unpredictable. It changes. You can't rely on it. On the other side, you have architecture. That's your foundation. That's the structure that holds steady no matter how you're feeling. Chasing motivation is like trying to build a house in a hurricane. Building architecture is creating a shelter that can withstand any storm.
Okay, so let's dive into our first section and really unpack what we're calling the motivation lie. We're going to see exactly why relying on your mood is such a bad strategy and figure out what your real internal operating system actually is.
So what is this internal structure we're talking about? Well, it's not about how badly you want something, it's just about your default settings. Think about it for a second. When things get boring, or confusing, or just plain uncomfortable, what's your automatic move? That right there. That's your real programming.
So that begs the question, right? If you feel stuck, and it's not because you lack motivation, then what's actually holding you back? This is the key question that cuts through all the noise and helps us find the real reason we're not being consistent.
And here they are. These are the 5 big ones we usually misdiagnose as a motivation problem. Maybe you just don't have a clear next step, or the habit you're trying to build is just way too big. Maybe there's no reliable trigger to even get you started. Or hey, maybe you see discomfort as a stop sign instead of a sign that you're growing. Or, maybe your body is just exhausted and everything feels 10 times harder. See, it's almost always a design problem, not a desire problem.
All right, let's move into our second section and build on this idea. Now we're going to talk about rewriting those invisible rules that run your life, the rules that are tied directly to who you think you are and how you see the world. This is such a powerful way to think about identity, isn't it? It's not some fixed thing, it's not your personality, it's a set of self-imposed laws. It's the ceiling you put on yourself, it's the permissions you give yourself, or don't. Every time you say, oh, I'm just not that kind of person, you're actually just reading one of your internal laws out loud. And this is where the rubber meets the road. This is the real test of transformation. It's not about just wanting a new identity. The proof is in the friction. Real change happens in that moment you face the usual discomfort, that point where you'd normally give up, and you do the thing anyway. That's how you start collecting evidence for a new identity. Okay, so that sounds good, but how do we actually do that? Section 3 is where we get super practical. We have to learn how to spot these automatic, pre-conscious patterns, these autopilot scripts that control our reactions before we even have a chance to think. Here are some of the usual suspects. You've got the approval script, if they don't like this, I'm not safe. Or the perfection script, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't even start. How about the escape script? I need relief right now, I'll deal with the consequences later. Any of those sound familiar? These aren't you, they're just old programs you learned. So how do you catch one of these scripts in the act? Well, look for 2 things. First, the thought shows up with this feeling of absolute certainty. It feels like a law, not just an opinion. And second, you'll probably feel it in your body, a knot in your stomach, a tightness in your chest. That's your nervous system reacting to that old familiar program. And here is the tool to fight back. It's called the 10-second interrupt, and it's incredibly simple but so powerful. The second you feel that script fire up, you just pause for 10 seconds. That's it. Then label it. Ah, there's the perfection script again. Next, shrink the action. Make it so small you can't possibly say no. And finally, act. Do that tiny thing. You're literally gathering new evidence to prove that the old law isn't in charge anymore. This little technique leads us perfectly into our 4th section, building the skill of self-governance. This isn't about brute force willpower. It's about developing what we're going to call inner authority, so you can consciously choose your actions instead of being run by your old scripts.
So, what do we mean by inner authority? It's really simple. It's the ability to be in charge of your own rules. It's that moment when you've decided on a standard for yourself and you stick to it, even when your feelings, your excuses, and all your old patterns are screaming at you to do something else. It's about being reliable to yourself. And I absolutely love this quote from Brené Brown. because it draws such a clear line between true authority and just plain ego. Real strength isn't about never messing up, it's being strong enough to own it when you do. If your authority is just armor protecting a fragile ego, it's going to shatter. Real authority can bend, it can repair itself, and it can learn.
So here's a really practical way you can start building this. For the next 30 days, just pick one rule you're going to obey no matter what. Define the absolute tiniest version of it for the bad days. Start practicing noticing what's actually yours to control versus what isn't. And finally, add one simple boundary to protect your energy and integrity. This isn't a life overhaul, it's just about building trust with yourself through small, consistent promises.
Okay, let's move into our final section, and honestly, this might be the most important one. How do you actually know if any of this is working? We need to look for real, measurable, external proof that your internal architecture is actually changing.
You know, the first sign that this is working isn't some feeling of euphoria or massive success. It's actually a reduction of noise inside your own head. The long back-and-forth debates you have with yourself, they just start to fade away. Decisions get faster. Your yes becomes a clean yes, and your no becomes a clean no. And other people notice, because you stop sending mixed signals. And this just gets to the heart of it. You know, trying to perform confidence is loud. It needs an audience, it needs validation, but real authority, the kind that's built on a solid internal architecture, is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. It's just steady, it's consistent, and other people can feel it without you ever having to say a word.
So if you want to audit your own progress, here's a really simple 4-point test. On a personal level, are you keeping your rule when it gets hard? Operationally, is your follow-through rate actually getting better? Relationally, are you less reactive and quicker to fix things when there's a conflict? And socially, are people starting to treat your yes and your no as final? This is about data, not drama.
And this really brings us back to the core idea of this whole explainer. The goal isn't to chase better feelings. We're not trying to feel motivated all the time. The goal is to build a better architecture, a structure inside of you that supports the actions you want to take, day in and day out, no matter what the weather is like.
I just want to leave you with this final thought. Real, lasting change, it doesn't show up like a lightning bolt. It's not this big, loud, dramatic event. It shows up quietly, in the small moments of friction. It's the little choice you make when you're faced with that familiar resistance. So the question isn't, how do I get motivated? The real question is, what tiny architectural choice can I make right now?